right? Show this someone 5 times and then mix it up. Maybe show it to them again.
See if they change their mind.
You never know. Like it changes their mood, other things. The problem when you have hundreds of millions of users, there's every type of use case.
So it's hard. So it can be hard to generalize.
It's very hard to generalize.
All right. Well, we just totally dove in because I'm really interested in in what you're saying, and it makes sense. But I'd like to pull us back a little bit more generally to actually my questions that I've written down. So if you could talk to us sort of more generally, recommendation engines for dummies. How do they work? What are kind of the basic things that one would need to someone like us who's not, we're not computer scientists,
I don't think you need to be a computer scientist to understand. I think like probably the most understandable is Amazon's people who bought this also bought this other thing. There's really very little. I mean, there's, correlation between 2 events occurring and have clearly had to statistically occur more than what they expected. But underneath the covers, it's pretty simple. A lot of people who bought this also bought this other thing. I think it's pretty clear what the recommendation is. For Twitter, it's pretty clear. Like, oh, you follow these 3 people, and guess what? They all follow this other account. You might be interested. I don't think like the algorithm to go figure that out is all that difficult. Like you can conceptualize it in your mind fairly easily.
And would you say that there are situations though where the algorithm does become more involved, or are most recommendation engines that we see today sort of as simple and easy to understand?
No, there's a lot of aspects to them, from anti-gaming, right? I know that's shocking. People game these algorithms, to diversification. Right, you don't want to just like show one type of result. You want to like have a diversity of things you're recommending. So you'll notice in Netflix that they don't just recommend one type of movie. They break it into categories. Right. And I'm sure they've done a bunch of A/B testing and figured out that was the best for their users.
Probably.
I think something from a consumer-facing side is you have to realize what these companies are trying to do is build a better product for them. That's why they look at this data and they try to make it better every day. A whole team's just set up. How do we make this a little better for you? How do we do that? Let's do it again. How do we measure our progress along the way?
And so that's what you've been doing for Twitter to some extent, yes?
To some extent, yes.
And do you have a team that you?
There's many teams, yeah.
Okay.
Many teams.
Interesting. Okay. I guess, and I don't know if this is going to get sort of too, or maybe sort of address this already, but just talking about, we did talk about that. All right, I actually want to hear a little bit more about your company, Surmise, and also how you feel like, why you developed it, and then how you feel like that experience, and I guess also your experience at AOL, led you, to end up in your current work with Twitter.
Well, I've retired from Twitter.
Oh, you retired from Twitter. Okay.
Yes. A couple months ago.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. It still says on your bio on the website. Maybe you don't change that often.
I don't go there very often.
Okay. Well, so what are you doing now?
I started at elementary school.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. It's in San Francisco. It's focused on science and math for kids. It's great. We have small classroom sizes, a lot of project-based learning, and it's wonderful.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You probably don't use recommendation engines in school, or do you?
Not that I'm aware of yet. Maybe we'll teach them that later on. It hasn't come up yet.
I did read an article when we were starting our research about, I'm forgetting the name, but a small university created, one of their provost or someone created a recommendation engine that was, it somehow was looking at, I believe it was the students' grades in previous classes and then the classes they were looking to register for, and it was saying,
maybe you shouldn't.
Based on your past experience, you will likely get this grade in this class, or you're unlikely to complete this class.
Interesting.
I don't actually know how well people. It sounded like they just launched it recently, so I don't know.
That's a great use of data.
And interesting. I thought it was a really interesting.
Yeah.
Thought.
I mean, I guess it could push people both ways, like prove them wrong, or like, whoa, I'll stay away from this class. I think both might be success. More information and a better way that we can look at our world anytime, I think, is useful.
So would you say that there are improvements that can be made to current recommendation engines that also it sounds like you might be in support of their use in more applications than they're currently in?
Well, I think people will use them whenever they're appropriate. What's their goal? What's your goal? Right? So the school's goal is to not set people up for failure. I think that's a very admirable goal. When I was teaching at Georgetown, like I literally have people come into like the senior level computer science networking class, and they're like, "Hey, I've never taken a computer science class," and I'm like, "Look, you're going to fail. There is no way you're going to learn 3 years of prior knowledge in one semester." And most people took that advice. So what are we doing? So what's your goal? Why are you giving this recommendation to someone? Right? You're trying to improve something. So, yes, we should have more.
Can you talk a little bit about how effective you think a lot of the current systems that are out there are in terms of reaching the goals that they've set?
I think they all have improvements to be made. But people are using it and deriving value, so it's good. Right? Have you gone to Amazon and bought anything else because of those recommendations?
I think so.
So?
Definitely watch more movies on Netflix.
Okay, there you go. So it's helping. Is it perfect? I don't know. Sometimes I like kind of the random crazy recommendations. Right? Because I'm like, I'm not going to watch that, but at least I'm now aware of it. So it's good.
Are there anything specific that you, or general, I guess, that you'd say for the people who are currently working on building recommendation systems?
Well, I think everyone struggles with what's the right metric to monitor your progress. So, in science, you try to come up with a hypothesis, you try to be able to test it and measure your progress as you're trying to derive the right answer. And so engines are no different. Everyone's struggling with what's the right metric for me to start understanding my progress and trying to come up with a better solution. And I think that's probably the biggest thing people are struggling with these engines.
Do you think, obviously there's a fair amount of stuff that goes into the back end, do you feel like and I don't know if this was a part of your work, but also I guess I'm interested in the interface of the engine. So Netflix has the stars, as we said, Pandora has the thumbs up, the thumbs down. It's sort of a friendly interface way for someone who doesn't necessarily want to see the bowels of the beast of the engine. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the interface and how the sort of dumb user sees it, does that have any impact on how it's going to work, the kind of data that the engine is going to get?
It does, and I don't think users are dumb. Right? They're there for a very specific goal, and it's not like you don't care how your car works, you just want to turn it on. You don't care how your TV works, you want to watch. So that doesn't make you dumb. It just means, look, I just want to use this piece of technology to solve my problem. Right? You go to Netflix, you're like, look, I don't really care how your recommendation now works. Like, is this a good movie? Then I should watch it. Like, that's all your only question. So the interface and how you describe and present that information is incredibly important. Right? We could show you the same information in a very bad way, and you're not going to digest it, you're not going to use it, you're going to derive no value. The better that information is conveyed to you, the more likely you are to trust the engine and use it.
This is sort of a
random question?
Well, a little bit. I started telling you at the beginning of our project how we're sort of opening up the black box, as it were, of the technology, and really trying to grapple with it. That's what some of my questions have been getting at. Another part of the project is we are supposed to look at the technology contextually. So one contextual issue we're looking at is, for example, with the Netflix prize and how it was canceled the second time they were going to do it because there were concerns about the privacy and how the data that they had released the first time, people were somehow between the user data of the Netflix that totally had been de-identified, everything, but then comparing that to user ratings on the IMDb website, they were able to figure out who people were, and there was lawsuits and a whole sort of thing. So I guess I was wondering, a sort of different contextual issue, do you feel that it's a concern that, so we have lots of recommendation engines, what to watch, what to buy, what news you should be reading. Do you feel that it's a concern that people are sort of going to get in